Good evening. It is 7 o'clock, and we're going to call this meeting to order. Thank you for being here this evening, and I hope you felt welcomed by our Human Resources Manager, Heather Kidd, and our Public Works Operations Manager, Kevin Gray. They were our greeters this evening. If you have any cards and you haven't turned them in, now would be the time to make sure and you finish that up, get those in to the city clerk, and I'll be introducing the folks up in front of you while you do that. To my right, your left, our recording secretary, Cassidy Ritz. Next to her is our city clerk, Colby Salento. Next is City Commissioner, back from Israel, our Zone 1 City Commissioner, Dwight Selby. Next to him is our Deputy Mayor and Zone 2 Commissioner, Troy Kent. To my left and your right, Commissioner Susan Persis from Zone 3. The shrimp-eating commissioner himself, Rob Littleton from Zone 4. And our city manager next to him, Joyce Shanahan. Assistant City Manager, Claire Whitley. City Attorney, Randy Hayes. And a co-shrimp eater seated in the middle. For those of you listening online, I'm Mayor Bill Partington. If you would, please rise for the invocation. Silence your cell phones. And tonight the invocation will be given by Bethel Ministries Reverend John J. Seelan, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Let's pray together. Our Heavenly Father, we come before your throne of grace with thanksgiving, adoration, love, and submission. Father, we thank you for the great land that we live in. We say, in God we trust, and truly we trust in you, Lord. And your word says, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Father, we ask of you to heal all of those people that are affected by this coronavirus all over the world. And Father, we pray for protection for our land and all the nations of the world. And Father, we thank you for our city of Ormond Beach and for these great leaders that you have appointed over us, Lord God. As Solomon asked for wisdom, we ask for your wisdom, guidance, and understanding for these able leaders, and protection for not only for their families, but for all of the families that live in this city, Father. We thank you for your love. Continue to release your love, kindness, goodness, abundance upon our city, and to grant us your favor of righteousness and wholesome healing and joy and peace. We give you all the glory and honor and praise. We ask it in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move on to audience remarks. And tonight we start with Irene Todora.
Irene Todora, 340 Cumberland Avenue. Thank you for letting me speak, Commissioner, Mayor, and everyone. This is Ormond Observer City seeks input for stormwater master plan. So I just wanted to talk to you. On January 27th at a workshop, we met with engineers to discuss this stormwater master plan. There were boards that showed neighborhoods, and we were asked to place colored dots to show what kind of flooding issues we had. Red, stormwater surge; green, tidal, sunny day flooding; yellow, other type of flooding; blue, rainstorm flooding. Our neighborhood fell into all four categories. I brought all these photos to that meeting, and I discussed them in detail with Mark Ellard, who is the head environmental engineer in charge of this project. And the pictures start with flooding in 204 after the hurricane, where our whole neighborhood was underwater. I had fish in my crawl space. It was the biggest mess you could even imagine. The city realized how extreme our flooding was in 204 and decided to apply for a FEMA grant to construct a seawall, but it had been turned in too late. Alex Schumann also took these pictures for a couple of weeks. He took them home, to his office to review them so that it might help in what we need to do in the future. Since 204, we've had hundreds of meetings and emails and pictures shown to the city, but no solution to our flooding issues ever finalized. Since that time, our flooding has worsened. We flood after a rainstorm. Our stormwater issues are very bad. Our flood risks include heavy rain, storm surge, groundwater, and tidal flooding. Mr. Finley, in this article, acknowledged there's been a lot of historic flooding in that area from the creek, which includes Sanchez, Cumberland, and Putnam. The article states that the city, was able to get 10 to 12 million in funding from FEMA to help with our flooding issues. Our hope is when the City Commission reviews the Stormwater Master Plan in a workshop as the final phase of this very important project, that your decision will please save our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Steve Verdegues.
Hi, I'm Steve Verdegues. I'm also at 340 Cumberland Avenue, and I was just going to go over some of these pictures and show y'all some of the results from the past hurricanes and just past rain we've had with just flooding with our yard and other neighbors. Just after a moderate rainfall, see that a lot around Ormond Beach. Oh, okay. It's basically our backyard when it's moderate rain, we get flooding. Some pictures from 2004 and 2009. See me fishing in the backyard there. I'm sure there's a number of other people in the area here also have flooding. Neighbors' homes here, and our swimming pool is also flooded. Our crawl space underneath the home is also flooded.
Steve, are those copies for us?
Yeah, Irene gave some.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure for the record. Thank you.
And that's about it here. I guess it's. But anyway, you do have on record, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Next is Lee Grosso.
Thank you guys for having us. A little bit more of the same. We all live in the same neighborhood. We've all experienced. I've been there since '83. I think Irene's been there since '82, '81. I recently purchased another home about 7 houses away, so I'm a real glutton for punishment. However, my son has taken over the house that he grew up in, and that house sees a lot of flooding. I live on the corner of Andrews and Putnam now, and I've had several of the city engineers out to my house after just a normal rainfall, where my backyard holds about 10 inches of water. And I am a good 100, I would say a good football field and a half away from the creek. So if you can imagine the impact that they have living closer to the creek. So we would like to see some of this money to help try to clean up this problem that we have. We've been overlooked for, I've been there since '83. We've been overlooked for many, many years, and I know that the city engineers are like really compassionate about it. So we're hoping that that it all can come together and something can happen in the right magnitude to help us out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next is David Randall.
David Randall, 99 Chrysanthemum Drive, Ormond Beach. Good evening, Mayor Partington, City Commission, and City Administration. I'm not only a resident of Ormond Beach, I'm also the Vice President of the Ormond Beach Professional Firefighters, IAFF Local 3499. I stand before you in support of our resolution that you'll see later this evening. The contract is a product of countless hours of work between our union and your administration. We feel this contract is both fair and competitive with neighboring agencies. The city manager once referred to Ormond Beach as the crown jewel of Volusia County, and I couldn't agree more as a resident and an employee. Under our current administration and department leadership, we have greatly improved. We look forward to working together in the future. Thank you for your time and ask for your support in passing this resolution.
Thank you, David. And last but not least, Jim Schultz.
Jim Schultz, 117 Harvard Drive. I've been here a few times, way too many few times. Life is short. I'd prefer not to come back here, but I can't resist it. Anyways, that goes to the fluoridation issue. But anyways, what I'm going to speak about tonight is the coronavirus. It's a unique thing. We really don't know how it's going to come out because you never know until the end. It has a very strange thing, a 2 weeks latency period, which makes it unusual in that you can be exposed, shedding with no symptoms for 2 weeks, maybe longer. So in other words, people can in good faith think they're not sharing it, but be sharing it. And anyways, it seems to be much less lethal than the SARS and the MERS, which were also the same type of virus, coronavirus. But coronaviruses also are some of the very least deadly, some of them. This is a novel one. It appears to be somewhere in that middle. Because some of the flu-type symptoms, well, some of the cold symptoms are also caused by coronas. The one thing that you can do to make you much more less susceptible is get your vitamin D level up. For some of the coronaviruses, they say if you get a 30 nanograms per milliliter, that protects you. I've also read some data at 39. Most people are actually below both of those. So in other words, and I saw one study where every single black female in the study was below 40. In other words, not a single one. Why? Oh, the federal government's known for 50 years, but they didn't set a different, higher standard for blacks who they know are always insufficient due to skin pigmentation. I also wanted to, anyways, as far as getting the flu vaccine, people should be aware there's a vaccine injury compensation program. The majority of people paid the last few years for injuries aren't kids who get almost all of the vaccines. It's adults who have flu vaccines. And most of it is for neurological issues like Guillain-Barré. And if you ever, well, I've told you about the 76 vaccine program. They paid out $4 billion. It was the biggest failure in vaccines, and they said it was going to be perfectly safe vaccine. They gave total immunity to the vaccine company. After 45 million shots, they stopped. it was deadly and harmful with no benefit.
Thank you, Jim. We will now move to approval of the minutes from the February 18th, 2020 regular City Commission meeting. They've been sent to the Commission for review, posted on the city's website, and I believe a copy was made available in the library as well. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Just need a motion and a second.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign, and we will show those passing unanimously. Thank you. The consent agenda, the action proposed is stated for each item on the consent agenda. Unless a commissioner removes an item, no discussion on individual items will occur, and a single motion will approve all the items. Does anyone wish to pull any of the consent agenda items?
Mayor, I would like to pull item A.
6A.
Motion to approve the consent absent item A.
Second.
Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And 6A.
Resolution number 2020-21, a resolution approving Bimbo QSR US LLC as a qualified target industry business, providing for local financial support for performance-based job creation and growth assistance funding, authorizing an agreement therefore, and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2020-21, read by title only.
Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mayor. When I look at this specific incentive package, I don't think it's good enough. I see the $43,400 as the average wage is supposed to get. Well, that's the bare minimum, and for growth assistance funding. Also, the ROI doesn't seem to be high enough. Within the net benefit's supposed to be $160,000. Well, for the last 4 years, we've collected around $18,000 to $19,000 in property taxes, it seems, according to the property appraiser on that property. So that's, I mean, if we did nothing, that's like $180,000. We wouldn't have to give them any money. I anticipate a rebuttal saying, you know, there's other economic activity with the project and the business, and that's good. That's a good thing. Furthermore, we've approved other incentive packages with a similar type annual wage. However, they typically had something else with them. Ameritech and Padwell, for example, was in the airport business park, our business park. And Security First, Lucky's, even SR Perot back in the day, it all seemed like there was excitement, community excitement, and we knew we were getting more than just the numbers on the page with that. And I just don't see that with this package, this specific package.
Good deal. Joyce, would it be okay to have Brian respond to that? Okay. We'll call up our Economic Development Director, and he can address those concerns or answer any other questions.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Commission. Yes, the application that you have before you is for a company known as Bimbo QSR. They are affiliated with a multinational company based out of Mexico called Bimbo. It is a bakery manufacturer that provides bread for private labels, some that you may know, including Arnold's, Thomas, etc. And then the Bimbo QSR division provides fresh baked bread for quick service restaurants and hotels. As you can see in the incentives that are being offered by the city include $80,000 for capital expenditures that they for their $7.5 million of capital expenditures that they anticipate doing to the facility on North US 1, and $55,000 for the 55 jobs that are above the 115% of the average annual wage. When we look at, if you look at in the growth assistance program application, actually the $43,401 is the baseline of the 115%. The average annual wage for typically in Volusia County is $37,740. So at $43,000, they're getting 115% above. In our actual application, the client or the applicant actually spelled out the wages that will be applied to the different positions that are there. So on average, actually, their wages will be $45,000 to $56,000 for the production line and the maintenance workers, and then they'll be averaging about $85,000, as they spelled out here, for a lot of their managerial positions that will be out at the site. So actually we'll be seeing significantly higher wages than what was listed in the application. Typically for the QTI, they'll place the 43,401 as the average. And then today, in talking, we met with the executives as they were coming again to review and look at the facility, again, as part of their process in deciding whether or not they'll locate here or they'll locate in Atlanta or Mississippi. They've actually said that in this facility they'll be making roughly $18 million of capital expenditures in the facility based on what they would like to do here if they were to select Ormond Beach. So those are some of the additional news or additional ways of kind of breaking down the average annual wage that we see and the capital investment that we have there. I think one of the things also to point out is the company is coming in, whereas originally they were going to be taking up 40,000 square feet, they're actually looking to maybe take even more space, so it'll be 70,000. And what they'll be doing is basically bringing to capacity a building that has sat vacant for the last couple of years. So we'll now see not only high quality or high wage jobs in that facility, but we'll also see a building that is now fully leased and fully operational.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions or?
What's sort of the definition used for high wage?
What they do, the Enterprise Florida, and I'll direct you to, again, the application we have in there. The state of Florida, Enterprise Florida, creates average wage requirements where they look at what the average annual wage data is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they list it out by county. So the average annual wage in Volusia County, is listed on the sheet, is $37,740, or an average wage of $18.14, and that's defined and determined by Enterprise Florida. The average annual wage, starting wage that Bimbo QSR will have starts at $22 an hour.
So, Mayor, if I may,
Commissioner Selby, I'm sorry.
Just to make sure I'm clear on this. So, in other words, the applicant writes the absolute bare minimum that they have to achieve in order to qualify for the grant, when in reality they're gonna far exceed that on an average, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, does that help at all?
The 115% is what Enterprise Florida uses, but if our goal is to attract high wage jobs, is there a defining number? Like I saw Moody's, the financial institution, said 65,000 was a high wage job. Then I saw a paper a few years ago. It said 50% above average annual income, which was a few years ago. So who knew what it was? So that's what I'm asking. Are we actually attracting slightly above average paying jobs, or are we attracting high wage jobs?
I would say that we're attracting slightly and higher wage jobs. When you have, the more jobs you create, when you have more jobs, you have to bundle together the averages of all the wages, and so in some instances it can bring the average wage down. If you look at the instance of Security First Insurance, where that average annual wage was $61,000, it's because when bundled together, the average wage of all of those jobs brought you to a higher number. I would say, given the scale that we see on the variety of different jobs that this company will be making, on par they will be higher paying jobs.
And it's performance-based, correct?
Correct. The incentives, both at the state and, of course, our local incentives, are all performance-based, so they won't be paid out the incentive monies until they've demonstrated and verified through us that they've created those jobs and made the capital investment.
And did you talk about how it's an inducement? I mean, there's no guarantee they're going to choose us over the couple of other locations.
That's correct.
But the state, the county, and us are offering an incentive. The way these work, you offer a little in hopes of getting a lot back down the road. So initially, you may take a couple years of a hit, but if the performance basis pays off, you end up far better ahead than you would be otherwise. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, that is correct. Right now, when we were first introduced to the company, they told us they were considering locations in Atlanta as well as Mississippi, and those states as well are also offering them incentives. And so the state of Florida will only supply the grant, the incentive as an inducement for them to select Florida, to select Volusia County and Ormond Beach. So right now their decision has not been finalized, and so the incentives like these, we just are an opportunity to place it on the table for them to select Ormond Beach or in Volusia County.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone want to?
Yeah,
Commissioner
Mayor, if I may. Yeah, Brian, could you address how equipment, personal property is taxed? You said their initial proposal was $7.5 million, but now it might be as much as $18 million in capital investment in the property. And they're going to be a tenant, right? They don't own the building.
They'll have a long-term lease in the facility.
Right, long-term lease.
Right.
But that capital, that equipment is taxed, right?
Correct.
I'm not familiar with that because I don't have any businesses that have, a lot of capital equipment like that. How is that taxed?
Well, I'm not an accountant, but when they would depreciate. I can't answer that question right now.
Okay,
But I guess the point of this the point is when they were originally looking at the space, they were looking to spend $7.5 million as an expense to get the building up and running, and as they are continuing to look at it, it looks like that number will be significantly higher.
Right. Okay. So, I guess my point is, Commissioner Littleton, you said that the taxes on the real property would remain consistent. So some of this capital investment may be in the real property, which would add to the tax valuation of the property. Some of it may be in equipment, which I believe is also taxed. Personal property is taxed too. And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about. I recall reading in the write-up that this will be their southeast headquarters, or are they moving the company from Chicago? Is Ormond Beach their new headquarters, or is it just for the southeast, or what?
It would be their location, and currently they do not have a presence in the southeast. And part of what this facility will do for the company, wherever they decide to locate, is be the service provider for southeastern United States. And my understanding is that would be all the way from Florida and the Carolinas all the way to the western part of Texas, and not go in south of Tennessee. So that entire area will be served by this company.
Commissioner Persis.
I just wanted to ask you how long that building has been vacant.
It has since 2017, 2018.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, there had been a tenant in there, but it wasn't really being utilized to its full capacity.
Deputy Mayor Ken.
Yep, I'm ready to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, and I appreciate that. I think at this point in that particular building, which is ideally suited to be a bakery, any job would be better than no job. And I take the 115% as a good benchmark. But if we could get an employer in there that makes quality brands and provides jobs in our area, you're talking Thomas English muffins, all the Sara Lee products. They make the Arnold bread line, Entenmann's, the Ballpark's brand of breads, Boba Lee, quality national brands that we're all familiar with, being based right here in Ormond Beach out of that facility by, I think it's pronounced Bimbo. They're a company that's based in Mexico, and so, they probably didn't realize the implications that name might have here, but so it's Bimbo, and it's a multinational company. That'd be a great location for them. You've got rail there, you've got major highways there, and so we can only participate with the state and with the county that I understand approved this earlier, and hope that they choose us. Unless anybody has anything else, Colby, please call the vote on
Commissioner Kent?
6A.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes, and now would be the appropriate time for any commissioners who wish to comment on any of the consent agenda items. Commissioner Persis.
I just want to say I'm very excited to see some of our amazing firefighters here. We're very proud that the contract was agreed upon and reached. You certainly deserve it, as well as our police officers do. So I'm just really happy about that. We just have the best people in these best firemen and the best policemen. I have to tell a story real quickly of what happened the other night. I was crossing Granada, and the flashing light was out because I think someone hit it on the I guess it's the eastbound lane toward Granada. And so I was crossing the street, and that particular lane didn't work. So there was a police officer parked there, and he escorted me across the street. He was not just me, he was escorting anybody because of the safety issue. And I just think, wow, that's amazing. I'm sure that's probably up and running or soon to be, but I just want to comment that we really appreciate our fire and police officers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor. Very nice.
I had 3 items, L and M, which are firefighters and police, and the firefighters came out tonight and spoke. But I just wanted to say I'm glad you were pleased with the results, because I'm not going to speak for everyone, although I think I could. I'll speak for myself and say that I am also pleased. I thought that it was a fair package and something that we don't have to address. It's a 3-year contract, even though part of it was for last year. But I think that's another healthy thing we do in Ormond Beach. We try to make sure that our employees aren't guessing years down the road. So I wanted to talk about L&M and say I was pleased with that. And then also P, the partnership that we have now created with the Garden Club of Halifax County and Vadner Park. This vote tonight was more proof that this commission loves our environment and loves trees. So I'm pleased that we have a new partner going forward. Thank you.
Good deal. Anyone else? Absolutely. Commissioner Persis.
I just wanted to piggyback on Deputy Mayor Kent's comments. You know how strong our garden club is when you see all these ladies here taking time for their evenings. They don't have to be here, but they're here in support of this project. And so I know it's going to be a premier project. That park is going to be just absolutely the best. So thank you all very much.
Absolutely. Yep. And you guys, I saw the garden club. I wanted to at least recognize you for cleaning out some of the weeds and invasive species from our Ormond Memorial Art Museum gardens. It looked like hard work, but you have a plan to attack that and just continue to beautify that. So thank you so much for that. It's the true definition of a partnership. You guys did this exactly the right way. You were so effective in meeting with each commissioner and staff, coming to the city kind of not with a ask what your city can do for you approach, but ask what you can do to help the city, and bringing something really substantial to the partnership, which is amazing. So thank you all so much. We look forward to working with you. And Joyce, thank you for getting that to us so quickly. And with that, we will move to public hearings. We'll start with item 7A. If you had a consent agenda item and it's over, you're welcome to leave at this time. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to do that as well. But now would be an appropriate time to start with the public hearing. So I will open the public hearings. We'll move to 7A, and I'll ask the city clerk to read that by title only.
Ordinance number 2020-05, an ordinance annexing certain real property into the city of Ormond Beach, said property being generally located along the west side of Cordova Avenue, approximately 544 linear feet north of the Plaza Grande Avenue and Cordova Avenue intersection, and being commonly located at 806 Cordova Avenue and a portion of the Cordova Avenue right-of-way, redefining the territorial boundaries of the city of Ormond Beach to include the property, redesignating the boundaries of Zone 2 of the city of Ormond Beach to include the property, setting forth zoning, privileges, and obligations of said property, providing for transmission, providing for severability, and setting forth an effective date. This is the second reading of ordinance number 2020-05, read by title only.
Thank you. Colby, I don't have any cards.
Mayor, I'll move approval of ordinance 2020-05.
Second.
Any discussion? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And 7B.
Ordinance number 2020-06, an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Performance Standards, Article 5, Utility and Infrastructure Design Standards, Section 3-61, Utility Line Extensions of the City of Ormond Beach Land Development Code, to clarify the city's annexation policies related to utility connections outside of the city's municipal boundaries, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for severability, and setting forth an effective date. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2020-06, read by title only.
Thank you again, Colby. I don't have any cards on 7B. Just need a motion and a second.
Mayor, I'd like to move ordinance 2020-06.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And 7C.
Ordinance number 2020-07, an ordinance amending Section 22-48, Information, Approval Prerequisite to Service of Division 3 North Peninsula Water District of Article 1, Water of Chapter 22, Water and Sewers of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Ormond Beach, clarifying that neither annexation nor an annexation agreement are required as a condition to receive potable water service from the city, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, and setting forth an effective date. This is the first reading of ordinance number 2020-07, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. I don't have any cards on 7C.
I move approval of ordinance number 2020-07.
Second the
Second.
motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the staff bringing these forward, legal and planning, so that we clarify a long-held policy regarding annexation of the North Peninsula. So the provision of utilities, which we're already doing in the way of potable water, and then ultimately someday, hopefully, sewer will not automatically trigger annexation unless the property owner desires to be annexed into the city of Ormond Beach. Why they wouldn't want to be in the city of Ormond Beach is beyond me. Their taxes for most people who have homestead exemption would be reduced by approximately 9% right now, but that's their call.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And 7D.
Resolution number 2020-37, a resolution authorizing the execution and issuance of a development order for a special exception to allow outdoor activity to include itinerant vending and live outdoor music during recognized special events, and live outdoor music up to 4 times per month at Boot Hill Saloon Outpost, located at 1089 North U.S. Highway 1, which is within the B5 Service Commercial Zoning District, establishing conditions and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2020-37, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. And I'll ask our planning director, Stephen Spraker, to speak to us on this item.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Spraker. I'm the planning director with the city. The subject property is located at 1081 and 1089 North US 1. So this would be US 1 on the map. And it's about 900 feet north of Airport Road, which is located right here. So this is the area of US 1 that we are talking about. The property has a site history where the applicant purchased it in 2005. They ran a bar, which unfortunately was destroyed in 2008, and they conducted special events on the property since 2008, including up until last year. In 2014, the city enacted the Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement, called the ISBA, and that was basically the opportunity for the city to take control of that North US 1 corridor and apply the city zoning and city regulations. In 2015, there was a Land Development Code amendment. And that amendment basically segmented the existing special events and outdoor activity into 2 groups. One was recognized special event hosts. These were properties that had permanent businesses, had all the permits from Volusia County, so they went on a list that they were able to continue to do the special event host. The second list was for those unimproved properties. So they were vacant lands where they didn't have a business, but they were still conducting special events. And there was a 5-year amortization that concluded on August 27, 2019. In 2019, the property owner sought to obtain building and site permits to establish a permanent business. They were unable to get it done by the amortization date of August 27th. So they lost the ability through that ISBA, through that Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement, to have the special events. The Land Development Code allows outdoor activities through a special exception. So absent what the ISBA allows, there is a special exception process that allows outdoor activities. And so they applied for that. And on February 21st, about a week ago, they received a certificate of completion and occupancy for their proposed building. The applicant has 3 specific requests, and the way I'm going to present it and the way I would suggest you vote is for each request, because they could be independent or you can put them together if you so choose. So the first request is to allow itinerant vending up to 24 vendors, including food trucks, during the recognized special event weeks, and we'll get into that. To also allow live outdoor music from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. daily during those recognized special events. And then the third request is to allow live outdoor music as a permanent activity during the year up to 4 times a month, either Saturday or Sunday, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So the presentation will walk through each of those requests. The first was the itinerant vending up to 24 vendors. The original application requested to include Turkey Run and Jeep Beach events. Those are events that are not included in our ISBA. The planning board was concerned about expanded events, so their recommendation was for Biketoberfest, Bike Week, and Race Week, basically the same as that ISBA area. So this was an exhibit that was included in the application and in your development order. Note that it's up to 24, so they could certainly have less if they don't fill it. Other areas that have gone through the special exception process include what used to be the Kickstart Saloon at 906 North US 1. And all these special events, activities, have included a 3-year time period. So that gives the city the ability to come back and review how the special event activities have done. If they have not gone well, they could end it at the end of that 3 years. The next one was the Dairy Queen at 1626 North US 1. Was approved in 2014 and expired. And the most recent one was the Ormond Outpost, which approved itinerant vending, and that's set to expire on January 15th, 2021. So there is a process to allow the activities that they're requesting. Within your packet, there are certain conditions that were provided for the itinerant vending for special events. We have included the planning board recommendation to eliminate Turkey Run and Jeep Beach, so that is not recommended for approval. And again, we established a 3-year period. We also referenced the ISBA sections, which contains the conditions of how they operate those special events, what they can and can't have. So they wouldn't have anything additional than the ISBA. Within your packet, you received some written comments. Some supported the applications, and some recommended denial of the applications. So we packaged all the information that we've got, and we included it in the staff report. The planning board did recommend, with a 6-0 vote, to recommend approval of this item, excluding the Turkey Run and Jeep Beach events. And staff also picks up the planning board recommendation to allow the itinerant vending during recognized special events, excluding Turkey Run and Jeep Beach. The second item is regarding live outdoor music from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Again, this is an exhibit showing where the outdoor music is proposed. As part of the outdoor music, we did a sound test neighborhood meeting where the applicant notified everyone within 600 feet. They put a band together. We did decibel readings. So it gave a representation. One of the things we noted was the traffic was one of the dominant noise contributors. So these tests are useful. They don't guarantee how somebody, basically applies their outdoor music. Within the staff report and development order, again, there are conditions. Again, we eliminated the Turkey Run and Jeep Beach that the planning board recommended against. We included a code enforcement provision. We call it the River Girl provision, that basically says if you play till 11 and police or code enforcement catch you, or you play too loud, two times a year, you automatically lose the ability to have this. So there's a code enforcement provision built in. And again, there's a 3-year expiration date, and then any events after that would have to come to the commission. Again, within your packet, there were specific comments not to allow the outdoor music. There were ones to allow it, so there was representation of both ways. Also, within your staff report, there was basically lines to approve it and lines or reasons to not approve it. So basically, there was the ability to look both ways. Again, the planning board recommended with a 6-0 to approve it. Again, removing the turkey run and Jeep Beach, the staff picks up those recommendations. The third and last application was for outdoor music up to 4 times a month, either Saturday or Sunday, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Again, they haven't had a permanent business, so they haven't had the ability. In talking to the applicant, one of the things they wanted to do was to create an environment that would bring people to their newly established restaurant. The planning board also reviewed this and recommended to limit the number of live performers to 2. So basically trying to cut down the number of performers. We again included the River Grill code enforcement provision in this section. This one does not contain an expiration. So if that's something that the City Commission wants to do, a 3-year period, or something they believe appropriate, they could also do it. I know this is pretty small, but within your packet there are also the other restaurants and uses that have outdoor live music. They include River Grill, Caffeines, which is now The Grind, Dimitri's, Riptide, Beach Bucket, Ormond Brewery, and then the Woodstock was recently denied. A majority of those limited the performers to 2 live performers. And again, the planning board recommended approval. This time it was a 5-1 vote. There was concern with outdoor music on a permanent base was the vote against. Staff did pick up the planning board recommendation recommending that you limit the live performance to 2. And the applicant is here. If there are any questions of staff, we'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, we will hear from Rob Merrill, attorney for the applicant.
Thank you, Mayor. Rob Merrill with Cobb Cole, 149 South Ridgewood. Here on behalf of the applicant, Karen Garris is here with me, and she is the owner of Boot Hill Saloon for about 30 years in Daytona and about 15 years, as Steve said, here in Ormond. We do have kind of 2 different but very related things. The first 2 items are definitely event related, and the third one is the idea of being able to have a year-round business. Interesting sort of dichotomy between the 2 concepts. I'll sort of talk about both of them, but I think clearly the intent and purpose of your legislation is to have businesses year-round. In Daytona Beach, we've worked hard to try to figure out a way to make Main Street work that way, as I think you guys probably know. So I think the third item is really in line with your purpose for having folks be here year-round as businesses, and that's Karen's intent that I think she could elaborate on if you want to ask her any questions about that. You know, the event part of this is, you know, we've all who've been here a long time lived through events, and some of us love them, some of us hate them, some tolerate them, and for the most part, as a community, and I mean this by saying, you know, the governments, the county government, the city of Daytona Beach, Port Orange, New Smyrna Beach, Ormond, others have, DeLand, have come up with rules, you know, ways to try to live by these rules so that people who hate them can grit their teeth and people who love them can be part of it, like myself. You know, I've got 4 generations of my family in this community, and 3 of those are motorcycle racers, so we love motorcycles. We love the events. So, you know, Debbie has worked for the Boot Hill Saloon, you know, my paralegal. So we're part of that community. And so the others that are in the middle, well, I think that they just make sure that we abide by the rules that you guys come up with. So I think that's what we're here to tell you. And you know, you've got 27 pounds of paper here that Steve and his staff created that I want to thank him for. That result in this positive recommendation that has all of the background that goes into here's how they meet the rules. Now, Steve talked about how they might not, but I think for the most part, when you weigh the paper, it's 25 pounds and 2 pounds. So I'll let you guys, that's your job to make that decision. But the planning board's unanimous approval on the first 2, I think, speak for themselves. You know your planning board. They're pretty thorough. They're pretty focused on planning things like this. The one vote, I wasn't here, so I can't tell you exactly how that went that way. But again, towards the idea of permanent business, I think that certainly weighs in favor. the staff goes through systematically, as you guys know. Steve Spraker's one of the best in the business. He looks like a very young man, but he's been doing this a long time. He's got all of the criteria very, purposefully laid out here with how the facts apply to it. And I think that the result is very clear, and that's the reason for his strong recommendation. I'll tell you that my client is in agreement with all of the ways that the planning board conditioned this further, including Steve's recommended amended recommendation based on their input and input from the neighbors. So you have basically all of us in agreement in that regard. This is a special exception, as Steve said. I think had Karen been able to get all the construction done timely, and we missed it by not a whole lot, could have been done sooner. Everybody knows business is business, and you never know why business can or can't accomplish something in the time frame that they've given. But in this case, we had the opportunity to do it with a special exception versus trying to rush in time. So now we've come back and done it the old-fashioned way, if you will. But knowing that they've gone ahead, thankfully, and gotten the CO and they're open, I think is good news. But the special exception process is something you guys are familiar with. For the folks in the audience thinking that I think maybe some of them are probably going to have something to say about this one way or the other or in the middle. This is not an absolutely permitted use on this piece of property, but it's also not one that we have to change the zoning book or the zoning map about, which you guys see me doing all the time. Sometimes it's appropriate, and you guys get to decide whether it is or isn't. In this case, it's a special exception. It's kind of something in the middle. And Randy's the one who knows the rule book better than anybody up here. But essentially, it's sort of a in between where you got to go through the checking off the boxes to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Then they can say yes. If you're in a permitted use category, you just come in and ask for a building permit, and, occupational license, business tax receipt, and you move on. So this kind of in the middle place is exactly where this 27 pages of paper gets you that answer. Okay, and so that's something that you guys hopefully will take into account. And Steve's professional recommendation is about exactly that. That's the guy that does that. He does that evaluation, so it's in front of you. I won't go through that with you because we don't have all night. I know that, and you guys hate to hear me talk all night. So I will say though that one of the things that stands out, and I've done a lot of this special event permitting stuff in various cities and in the county over the 34 or 5 years I've been doing this. So sound is a big thing, right? Light, sound, proximity, activity, and how it affects other people. And so Steve talked about the DB test. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I can't say which based on how long I've been around here. In 2008, Steve and I both dealt with the River Grill, which you guys have probably had drinks or dinner there before. At that time, I don't think you guys even had the decibel meters. I think you had to get them and get the police educated on how to use them, et cetera. But everybody who was over in Tomoka Oaks, right across the railroad tracks from the River Grill, friends of mine, lots of them friends of mine, colleagues, came out and said, we're really worried that the sound that you're going to make from the band that's outside there on the River Grill is going to disrupt our quality of life. So we did the DB meter. We had bands just like you guys did on this one, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was a big negotiation. It was a lot of wrangling to get to the point where they said, okay, you can do it. And then the rule book that Steve just talked about, we wrote that rule book, in negotiating what we would do. As it turns out, I mean, the proof's in the pudding with these things, right? I mean, the River Grill's a nice place. They behave themselves. The music sounds good. Everybody likes it. People across the way are okay with it. I've never heard a complaint since. As a matter of fact, I heard just the opposite. And I think they go over there and they have drinks and dinner. The big thing at the time was the train goes by, whatever it is, 4 or 5 times a day. I hear it from my house across the river. And that was so loud that when they ran the meter, you couldn't really hear anything. So the same thing happened, I think, when they ran it out there on US 1. The cars are so loud, you can't hear the music. So the good news, though, when you look at the whatever page 217 where they actually told you what happened there with the dB meter, as you go around the perimeter, though, where anybody might be listening, it was way below the level. That's what was important, I think. Enforcement is a big part of these things. And, you guys hate to have to enforce, so you hope that you've got established business people that aren't going to misbehave. I hope that you can trust that Karen would be that kind of person. She's here to hopefully vouch for her business and their track record. I think that that's something to hang your hat on. You know, in the fact that she's an established business, we're talking about jobs, we're talking about tax base, we're talking about all the things that come along with businesses, local businesses doing well around here. And, you know, you guys are talking about QTI stuff. Well, the incentive here is just to say, yes, do your business and do it well. So I'm here, she's here. If you have any questions for us, if as these things go, if there are a bunch of people that are going to be talking, I'd like to just have a couple minutes at the end to be able to answer any questions from her perspective, if you guys would allow that.
Thank you, Rob. I do have a card for Karen. Does she want to address us at this time or reserve her time?
We'll reserve.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good deal.
Any
Next,
from me before I sit down?
I don't think so. Next, we'll have Gloria Gentry.
Hello, is this okay?
Yep.
I'm Gloria Gentry. I live in Tomoka Estates on Wall Avenue. And I don't know if you've seen the petition, but a lot of us neighbors in Tomoka Estates, we can't attend because of children and the time and everything. So I got the petition for the Boot Hill to be there. Several of us have lived there a long time. I think I've been there at least 45 years. It was a 2-lane highway back when I moved there. But, you know, I don't see any problem with it. Of course, we enjoy it. I know I was listening to the noise that they did with the cars and stuff. I mean, really, they should go out there and test when the bikes are out there, because you really wouldn't hear the music across the street. But anyway, I'm for it, and you know, I wish everybody could have attended the meeting, but I hope you take that as they're here with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Yeaton.
Evening. Al Yutton, Daytona Beach. I just kind of want to keep this a little bit simpler. Basically, you know, the owners had this since '05 and been part of the events since '05 and open full-time several years and then several not, but at least the events. And as Steve had said, but basically it's more of a, just wants to continue to be part of the bike week like she has been since she bought the place. And that's a big, it's a big lift, certainly monetarily, but she also wants to be open year-round. So give the community some place to go and enjoy themselves. And as far as if it's a sound thing on the weekends, that's all under control, you know, with the rules. So that's not going to be an issue at all. And then the music till 10 is just during the event. So that goes far beyond that with some of the establishments. But so we're done by 10. We just want to be part of it again. And I had one more thing. Yeah, so that we just wanted to, I think if we could have pulled this off a couple months ago, you know, we wouldn't have to be here. It was just we just couldn't get it. They want to do it right. We couldn't get it done in time. So now it is. It looks very nice. I think everybody would enjoy what it is. And again, just want to be part of it again.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. Next is Judy Garrett.
I'm Judy Garrett. I live at 29 Old Canyon Lane in Ormond Beach. I've lived there 16 years. I was at the first hearing at Boot Hill. I had an app on my phone to check the decibels. I noticed that it was heading toward the red, which says too loud, and I said something to Mr. Spraker, and he says, oh, well, that's the traffic. And it was 5 o'clock. I can't deny that he knows the difference, but I don't know that apps can pick out the music, the people talking, and the traffic. It's all noise. On the property, there's just a small building, a little building, and that's, from what I understand, is used for the bar. That means that everyone will be outside drinking. One of my concerns is, and that's what happens with all these outdoor facilities, you have so many people outside and there's nobody monitoring it. When you're in a restaurant and you're drinking, that is monitored. If you drink too much, your bartender's supposed to cut you off. It's not happening in the outdoor facilities. You don't know what else is going out there, drinks, drugs, whatever. I was on Route 1 one time when I had 5 bikes coming out of Boca and Spoke, tried to come out of that corner at the same time, and they all ended up in an accident with each other. That was because I'm sure they shouldn't have been driving. I want to draw your attention to the Ormond Beach Code, Section 2.54. It says that the city's purpose is to ensure a special exception is, number one, compatible with the character of the surrounding area. I'm sure years ago that was probably just woods out there. It's not anymore. There's a lot of people living around there. It's not only what they're doing there, they're going through our streets at 2 in the morning, making noises. We don't have the peace. I moved to Ormond Beach because I said, oh, this is so quiet, the streets get pulled in at 8 o'clock. Well, of course that's changed now. And I love Ormond Beach, and I love the way it's being maintained. But I still feel that we're also asking for adequate screening and buffering. I don't think there's any screening and buffering out there. It's strictly open property. The third thing is, on the section says, avoid or successfully mitigates nuisance and other adverse impacts. Again, the adverse impacts are things that I'm bringing forth, that people are not controlled, they're out in the open, and if they want to build a restaurant, fine, but at the hearing, they stated that the music would still be on the porch, so that still makes it outside.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Brian Holt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brian Holt, 106 Deer Run Lake Drive, Ormond Beach, Florida. I would be in favor of Boot Hill, or the commission approving Boot Hill Outpost tonight. I think the improvements to the property should make us all proud, the landscaping and what's been done there. And myself, my family will be happy to go up there and enjoy it all year round, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dick Hildebrand.
I'm a transplant from Ohio and Pennsylvania. I came down here because I love the beach. I love music. This building here is a lot better than the book and what you can give it. You've done a wonderful idea, wonderful job on that building. I've been curious about the nature of Boot Hill since I got here. I didn't know who the heck Boot Hill was.
Mr. Mayor, wait, we need him to speak in the
I need you to, I'll pass those out if you'll stick to the mic for us. Thank you.
And about 5 months ago, I saw them starting to do things down here. I got curious. Now, Steve, one thing you didn't mention was the Beaver Bar. They have music every Sunday from 1 till 5 ever since I moved here in 2013. And it's not a limited musician. It's a full band of 5 or 6 people. Okay? Now, when I live 1.75 miles north of that, and I can't hear the beaver until I get within 3/4 of a mile of it. I don't care what your noise surveys show, but when I get in my convertible and drive down the road, I now know the beaver's having music when I get in about 3/4 of a mile.
And Dick, I'll ask you to address us, please,
Oh, I'm sorry.
specifically me. No problem.
I'm sorry. I was just curious why the beaver wasn't mentioned here.
Okay.
Okay. My wife and I go down to the beaver for the music regularly. We'll be going down to the Outpost regularly. We think it's a nice entertainment, it's a beautiful afternoon, inexpensive food, good people. People talk about the problem with bikers. I have never seen a fight or an angry word spoken in any of the bars I've been to since I moved here. That's Iron Horse, Main Street Station. I work Main Street Station. We're back to the roots and the speed weeks, and the Beaver all the time. I've never seen anybody shove anybody. These people are well maintained. They're fairly well off. You guys ought to invite them back. Tell them bring their kids, bring their grandkids, and have a beach vacation. Because most of these guys are worth $250,000. They got more money in those bikes than I have in my house, and they need a good beach vacation. something you can do for one-third the price to go into Mickey Mouse Land. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Rob, did you want to wrap up briefly?
No, just thank you for your time, and I don't have any answers, any questions that I can think of, but appreciate the time.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have. Just need a motion and a second for discussion.
I move approval of, I don't know where the ordinance, I move approval of that ordinance,
2020-37,
2020-37.
as recommended by staff and the planning board. Okay. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Any discussion? Commissioner Selby.
Yeah, I have some questions probably for Mr. Spraker.
Stephen.
Stephen, what is the definition of a year-round business?
Well, they would have to have a business tax receipt. They would have to have functions that are a permanent business. And within our land development code, there is no certain number of days that you have to be open. But the establishment of the business tax receipt would be the primary criteria for a permanent business.
I can answer. Excuse me. I can answer that for you if you want. Excuse me. You may recall that in 2015, I believe it was, we adopted the ISB with the county, and we subsequently adopted itinerant merchant regulations, which includes a number of definitions, including one for primary business use, which goes to your question. So it is defined. I'll read it to you. It's a little lengthy, but it means a chief, dominant, or main business use of permanent and continuous existence on a year-round basis on approved land. It must be authorized by a valid business tax receipt, regardless of whether such activity is for-profit or not-for-profit. It does not include itinerant commercial activity or a temporary campsite activity, nor does it include land for which a business tax receipt has issued where discernible business activity that is customarily associated with such business is not being conducted. The purpose of this definition in these regulations is to ensure that vacant, unapproved, or blighted land is not utilized primarily or solely for itinerant commercial activities or temporary campsite activity for limited periods during temporary special events. These regulations and these definitions were specific to the issues that we were trying to resolve with the county in 2015 that resulted in the ISBA and subsequently these regulations. The special exception application is the mechanism or the bridge, if you will, by which the applicant is seeking the three uses that are before you this evening. So,
okay, thank you. And I visited the site twice today. Is the business open? Is it operating yet?
I would defer to the applicant. They have their business tax receipt. They have their certificate of occupancy. I don't know if they formally kicked open the doors yet. Yes, I'm seeing yes, it is open.
So it's operating now?
Correct.
Because
for the applicant,
I visited there at about 4:45 this afternoon, and both of the gates to enter into the property were chained closed, and it didn't look like there were any humans in the building or on the property.
Karen filled out a card. I'll let her talk now.
Okay, that's fine.
Give her just a second.
Sure.
Karen Garris, owner of the property, 1089 U.S. Highway 1. We are open. We opened Saturday with a soft opening. We were open Sunday as well. Today, notoriously, what we spoke to planning board about, we will be closed Mondays and Tuesdays. The rest of the week, starting Wednesday through Sunday, will be open.
Okay.
It just doesn't deem necessitable to be open on Monday, Tuesday.
And the original building burnt down in 2008?
In 2008, yes.
And what
Two
did you?
buildings
And
burned.
you owned the land back then, right?
I owned it since 2005. Yes, it was Jackson Hole since '94, but I purchased it in 2005, and then and it was a full-time business then. In 2008, it burned to the ground. 2 buildings burned.
And what have you been doing there since 2008? I mean, that's 12 years ago.
Well, there was no insurance because I had had an accident and it was leased with an option to purchase. He assured me he had insurance, showed me insurance paperwork and everything, but allowed it to lapse. So we were still open during the events twice a year, Bike Fest and Bike Week. We just could not be open full time. Then we decided to move to the smaller building, which is to the north of the 1081. It's all actually taxed as a 1081 parcel, but 1089 is the building we opened and set up in so that we could get back on a permanent basis.
And that's the building, the blue building on the north.
That's the blue building
Yeah,
with its
okay.
landscape now.
Okay, and is it a bar or a restaurant or both?
It's a bar currently. That is the use primarily. We did build new handicap bathrooms and everything. Our intent is a phase 2. Once we get stabilized, build phase 2 with a larger restaurant with an entertainment part to it and more landscaping and parking area.
Commissioner Persis.
Yeah. Do you serve any food at all?
Not at this time, just packaged food.
Okay.
And I have a catering license too, so there will be food there, but it has to be prepackaged according to health department.
Okay. So people, if they're
There will be
having
food
a
to
drink or
eat.
two, are going to be able to get something to eat.
It just has to be sealed and prepackaged
Okay.
and not prepared there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kent.
The building to the south of this blue building, that's on the, so you have this building right here,
Yes.
and there's the Boot Hill sign a little south of that, and there's a building behind it. Is that yours as well?
That is mine as well.
Yeah. So I was out there today. Actually, let me just stop for a moment. I just want to disclose, I spoke with Rob Merrill today on the phone. Great conversation. Every time I go to Costa Rica, I'm in the lineup, and this guy paddles up 3 times in Costa Rica. I've seen him. So, Rob, thank you for the call today and answer some of my questions. Now that I've disclosed that, I went out to the property today after my daytime job, and I liked the way this building looks, and I love your landscaping, and I could see that it was new concrete poured, and it was blocked off, so vehicles could not get in. And you've answered that for Mondays and Tuesdays. But the building to the south of this that has your sign, the Boot Hill, in front of it, and I took some pictures of it when I was there, it's embarrassing, the rubbish that's in front of that building, the stop sign down on the side of it, the weeds that are growing up. I just couldn't believe it. I was wondering if you could answer, why is that building in that type of condition?
That was a building that was the garage to the 1081 and the 1087 that burned, and it was temporarily left there because we had to store all of our equipment from the kitchen and everything in it until a future time that we thought we could rebuild before this time, and it just didn't happen that way. The building is strictly right now, and what you saw in the front was probably preparation for the bike event, should we be allowed to continue with that. It's the bars and the stages and everything for the outdoor area, and that's just sitting there in preparation for that. It will be taken care of, and that building will be demolished when we start phase 2.
Yeah, I was shocked to see it in the condition that it's in. I guess they're bars or stages. I thought they were pallets of some sort, but I mean, there's at least 30 of them. Trash cans filled up, knocked over, a stop sign knocked down on the side of the building, 5-gallon buckets knocked down, behind the building, more stage material. I was just shocked that the city's code enforcement hadn't reached out to you all since they were here looking at this beautiful piece. And right next door, so you've got this beautiful piece here, and right next door you have an eyesore that's not fair to our residents. That's not fair. They have to see that for 11 months out of the year, and then there's a month basically where there's events going on there. There's so many people on the property you can't see if that's still there. But I have more comments about this, Mr. Mayor, but that's all the questions I have for the owner.
I I'm surprised that you saw weeds because my lawn care person was there and he was weed eating everything today early in the day.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if you missed some areas there around that building, but I'll assure you that I'll take care of that.
Thanks.
Commissioner Persis.
Yeah, and regarding the music, what kind of music typically do you have? I mean, do you have like a 5-piece band with loud, heavy metal music, or is it more soft rock, country? I mean, what typically do you have?
Are you speaking during events?
Yeah,
or-
anytime.
During events, it kind of is the same music that they play it everywhere. My bands are a little more toned down. It's an older crowd. But then during off times for the Saturday, Sunday, during the rest of the year, during the weekends, it'll be a duo or acoustic, one person.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Selby. We're back to
if I
discussion.
could, I'd like to ask some additional questions, Mr. Spraker.
Sure. Stephen.
Did the North US 1 Business Coalition weigh in on this at all? Peggy Farmers Group?
They did not.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think so. I mean, one of the things they're trying to do is really improve North US 1, and they've gotten quite a bit of businesses together and so forth. I think that would have been some valuable input. And also, I need to disclose that I also had a conversation with Rob Merrill, who I've known for many, many years, about this. If everything failed tonight, they would be able to run the restaurant, park motorcycles, but they wouldn't be able to have outside music or vendors, right? Itinerant vendors.
Correct.
And they wouldn't be able to have the ongoing music year-round.
Correct.
Right. Okay. And I noticed on that list of on page 1045 of the 7 or 8 businesses that have been given this special exception for outside music. One of the things that jumped out at me was the significant capital investment. I mean, the River Grill, the Grind, Dimitri's over on A1A, Riptides, the Beach Bucket, and the Ormond Brewery. These are all, businesses that have what I would consider significant capital investment, and most all of them are pretty big facilities also. And if the tax rolls are correct, we're looking at a building that's 28 feet by 24 feet, or 672 square feet. So I guess I'm concerned about. I guess really what I'm concerned about is and it's a little bit off topic, but the ISBA, the Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement that we have with Volusia County, and the implementation of that. Because I remember when this was being talked about more than a decade ago, when it first started talking about it in 2010, and then it took until 2014 to get it enacted. And I was very hopeful that that once Ormond Beach, got in charge of and I'm reading right from an email from Ms. Shanahan. Ormond Beach, this provided Ormond Beach the ability to control the land use, planning, and code enforcement of this corridor. And I know it just sort of kicked in right now, August of last year, right?
Well, the planning, the zoning, and code enforcement has been going on since 2014. So there have been significant planning, code enforcement resources spent in this corridor.
Okay.
It's not something that's going to change, in a 5-year time frame. But you are starting to see, the Dunkin' Donuts of the world taking down their huge interstate sign and redeveloping. There have been other properties that are starting to redevelop. So it's a slow process. This property did establish a permanent business. They did install landscaping. They did bring the building up to code compliance. Does that meet the criteria for a special exception? We gave in the staff report reasons for, which is basically, this could, deteriorate the ISBA area and you don't want to continue vendors, or reasons for. So It's a city commission policy decision that we've provided recommendation, planning board's provided recommendation, but there have been significant resources. Code enforcement has countless hours trying to correct RV storage. We've brought special exceptions to you for the fruit stand. So, yeah.
Ms. Mayor, can I provide some history for context
Yes.
here? So the city and the county's first interlocal agreement for the North US 1 corridor was actually in 1981. And that was specifically to facilitate the city provisioners facility, U.S. Foods. And as part of that that agreement, the city had the ability to serve exclusively the properties along that corridor, water and sewer. And as a condition of that, we typically require annexation or an annexation agreement. And so from about 1981 until 2010, when we first had the issue with cheaters, we had accumulated about 56 to 60 annexation agreements for properties that we could not annex because they did not meet the contiguity requirements. As part of that 1981 agreement, the county was supposed to adopt the city's gateway standards, which would, in a utopian world, the county would have issued development orders for businesses that were more in keeping with the city's vision. The county did not do that, and of course the county approved certain uses along that corridor that were offensive and somewhat objectionable. And I'm not going to go into the history of all that because we all know where that led. Part of that included the itinerant vending during the bike weeks, and that corridor has long been known for that since, and I've been around here a long time. And part of the negotiations with the county was how was the city going to deal with the property owners that relied upon the itinerant vending during the bike weeks. So what the city and the county agreed to do was to identify the properties along the corridor for which the county that had permanent businesses on a regular basis, annual basis, and we have a list of those in the regulations. It includes Iron Horse and 10 or 12 others. And we permanently grandfathered in those businesses so that they could continue during Bike Week events, recognized events, and that includes Biketoberfest, Bike Week coming up, Speed Weeks from the Rolex to the 500, and then the Pepsi 400. Those events only, recognized events. Those properties that had permanent businesses on an annual basis are grandfathered in. They can have itinerant vending during these events. The properties that were vacant or blighted or did not have a permanent business on them, and that included Jackson Hole at the time, were able to get a permit or license from the county during these events for itinerant vending, and that's all that they did. When we developed these regulations, we wanted to create an incentive for property owners of vacant land or blighted land to make permanent improvements, have a permanent business. And one way we did that was we gave them the ability within that 5-year amortization period to make those improvements and then come before the commission and asking to be allowed to continue with those activities and to be included on the permanent list, if you will. That amortization period expired August 28th of last year, 2019. So that window closed. So any property owner that was not included on the list as a permanent business owner that did not make the improvements and get on the list prior to last summer forever closed from itinerant vending activities. Doesn't mean they cannot still ask for it. And so one question for the commission from a policy perspective is, and the owner of this property missed the deadline by a few months, is whether you want to apply that incentive to encourage other property owners of blighted and vacant lands to make improvements. And so you have the ability to do that. The mechanism that's being used as an opportunity, if you will, is a special exception opportunity. And that special exception application is typically seen in a different in a different process than what you have here this evening. This is somewhat unique because we have standards that are specific for the ISBA corridor. But there's some policy applications involved as well, and that's something that you'll have to weigh in on. Now, our recommendation to the planning board was not to include the Jeep Weeks or the Turkey Rod Run, because those were not part of the, quote, the recognized special events that the county had approved. And so that's still the staff recommendation and the planning board recommendation. If there's an interest in this commission in broadening the event to include those, there's probably another way that we can do that. If you give the direction of staff, we can go back in the land development code and include that. But that's the history behind where you're at now. You're here now because the property owner missed the amortization schedule. So it's not a matter of right. It's a matter of whether, from a policy perspective, you want to encourage property owners to make permanent improvements on those properties, or whether you want to encourage or discourage use of itinerant vendor activities, outdoor activities, and music during these events. And there's three separate elements that's being asked, itinerant vendors being one, help me, Stephen, with the other one, outdoor music during these itinerant vendors, and then separate from that, on an annualized basis with conditions, the ability as part of the permanent business to have outdoor music as well with those certain conditions. And so that's why the planning director has recommended that you address each of those separately. You don't have to, but you certainly can. So that's the broader history behind what you have this evening. I know it's very confusing, or can be, but we'll do our best to answer any questions you have.
So the incentivization is you don't want to have to be coming back every 3 years for a new special exception. You're going to build something permanent in the meantime. So that, am I correct, Randy? Well, that's the incentive.
If you grant the special
duration.
exception for any of the uses, it's for a 3-year period, and then they have to come back. So there's no way to get on the permanent grandfather list at this point. It's strictly for a 3-year period, and that period, if I'm correct, is the same period of time that's been used for other special exceptions. So that's kind of the standard that's been used. You could decide that you want to do something less than 3 years, or something more than that if you wanted, or something in between that if you wanted. But 3 years seemed like, I think, from a planning perspective, a reasonable standard to use, since that's a standard that's been afforded to other businesses. And if should there be any violations, then they would be enforced through the code enforcement process that Mr. Merrill had referred to earlier. So those are the pieces that we have in place to try to make this thing work in the event that you decide to grant the special exception request. So I don't know if you have any other questions outside of that or not, but happy to answer them.
Anyone else? Any questions? Deputy Mayor Kent?
I don't have any questions. I just have comments. Are you ready for that?
I think so. Yep.
You ready for that? So, Commission, I'll just tell you where I am on all of this. As far as, people concerned about the music, I'm not concerned about the music. And I'll tell you why. Because look at all of the establishments around this establishment. I mean, they all have the outdoor music, and, we know what it sounds like. And I think it's very true what you're hearing about the noise from the cars and the noise from the motorcycles. Also want the applicant to know that my wife and I enjoy the Boot Hill on Main Street very much. And whenever I saw that you purchased this property back in 2005, because I was actually on the commission back in 2005, I was very excited for whoever the owner was. I didn't know it was you. And for our city It was, I thought, a really good thing. And you were open for a few years, and then you had a fire, and we know that it's been sitting vacant, not being taken care of, not looking good, not a viable business, and it makes me think back about where were we back in 2015, but really it was before 2015 when we set our city attorney loose, and this commission worked for, I think, 4 years to clean up that corridor. And we dealt with cheaters. And we put some plans in place to try to clean up the corridor. And one of the things we did was we gave 5 years. That's a long time to have your year-round business, and you're grandfathered in. You're there. You're good to go. And unfortunately, it didn't happen here. It just didn't happen. So now we're at the 11th hour, truly the 11th hour. So we have Bike Week officially starting on Friday, okay? And we're here on a Tuesday night meeting because somebody didn't meet a deadline, didn't do what I guess they wanted to do. And the residents of Ormond Beach have had to look at nonsense for over 11 months a year so that during the bike events, a ton of money can be made. And I'm very happy for all the business owners that make a ton of money and have a good time. I'm happy with that. But it also makes me think about the businesses that did what we asked them to do. The businesses that are there year-round. It's almost like this special exception, people can be rewarded for not following the rules. It makes me think of Window World. We're trying to clean up this corridor, and Commissioner Selby, we were talking to Window World with their containers, and it looked horrible, and he's a small businessman, and he puts people to work, and we listened to the whole story. And we gave him X amount of time, and nothing was done. I think we were going to give him another 18 months, and if my memory's correct, you said absolutely not. 6 months. We'll give you 6 months. And lo and behold, when I drove down there today, I took a look at Window World, and a lot of those issues that we were concerned about have been addressed. Have they all been addressed? I don't know. But I know a lot of them have, just from the roadway of what I see. Our city attorney mentioned that he was reading the definition of year-round business, and it says right in there, no itinerant vending or camping. Well, there's a camper on the property today. Today. There were people there whenever I pulled in, and they're there today. And when I spoke to Ms. Shanahan and Mr. Hayes today, I said, I'm baffled how staff gives a recommendation of approval for this. I am just like blown away. We're trying to work on this corridor. We give you 5 years, play by the rules, do what the Beaver Bar did, do what Iron Horse Saloon does, do what everybody who's following the rules. But this 11th hour stuff, it doesn't sit well with me. And I don't think it sits well for our residents. Here's what I want. I want you to be wildly successful. I want you to go ahead and build that restaurant you want to build there. I want a year-round business. It'd be a great place for, my wife and I to go visit. But Commission, I've got to tell you, unless I hear something extremely convincing from someone tonight, I'm a no on all of it, and that's where I am.
Anyone else? I'm happy to take a swing at it.
I would say something.
Commissioner Little.
First, I'll like to mention I did speak to Rob Merrill. I think it was yesterday. I had a brief conversation with him. I don't have the feelings like I wasn't on the commission at the time. I go up Bike Week, Biketoberfest. I walk from one property, sometimes across the street, go to the other. Yeah, I'm fine with basically all of this. I think the planning board did an excellent job. I'm not holding it against Boot Hill because that they didn't hit the 5-year mark. I think it's reasonable what they're asking for here right now, and that's where I stand.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay. I'm going to support it tonight. I did see Rob Merrill yesterday at the Ormond Garage. He stopped by the Mondays with the Mayor meeting, and we spoke for about maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes. It wasn't really anything substantive. He mentioned he'd be here tonight with this item, and he invited me to call if I had any questions. So I appreciate that, Rob. Just wanted to disclose that right off the bat. I think the process that this has been through with our planning board and staff's efforts, Randy, thank you for that legal history as well, was a good process, an intensive process, including the meetings with the residents. And I think you hammered out a lot of the concerns, a lot of the issues that were raised. And I appreciate that the applicant is trying to do it the correct way. It's not always an easy thing to do when you're dealing with government to do everything the correct way, but she's making that effort, and I appreciate that. I think but for the fire, in large part, you may not have had to be in this situation, but that's, part of life. Fires happen. Fire struck my family, and I've seen the impact that can have on futures and lives, and so I take that into consideration when I make my decision. Judy Garrett, I thought you were a beautiful woman who did a wonderful job explaining your concerns. As best as I could calculate, you're about 1.2 miles as the bird flies from this area, and that's the buffer. It may not be perfect, but the reason I'm comfortable and not concerned about the music is because back in 2008, after the River Grill was built, we actually went out and listened to the decibel concerns. We watched as Clay Irvin and the rest of staff put together the very detailed process for protecting our residents when it comes to those noise concerns. And so we haven't had any problems since then. The River Grill is kind of the gold standard for that. And I was just out there a couple days ago for the shrimp eating contest. I know it's tough work we have to do sometimes, but there were so many concerns about the River Grill. It was going to be too loud. It was going to be horrible for the environment. It's the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Concern after concern after concern, and the commission required a lot out of the applicants as a result of that, and the standards that were put in place as far as noise and decibel meters and all that were very strict, and as a result of that, that business has been wildly successful. It was jam-packed on Saturday, and it's just an amazing multi-year business that they've put together there. Because this went through such an extensive, advertised, open public process, I really think if anyone, one person, or the whole committee from the North US 1 committee had an issue, certainly we would have heard from them by now. Those are some of the most well-educated people when it comes to planning issues and planning processes. They would have called. They would have talked with staff. They would have shared whatever those concerns were. And so I don't think that is an issue. The fact that it's a limited duration and has a lot of safeguards within it, and it is sticking to the ISBA, I'm comfortable supporting it tonight. There is no broader policy expansion. I don't think anybody wants to see that. And I can't tell you in 3 years that I would reapprove it. I would kind of have to look at that whole corridor and see how, it's almost like a test if you can prove yourselves how well it's been managed. Have there been any verified complaints, and is it working before I would decide at that point whether to go forward. But because of the limited duration and all those other things, I'm comfortable supporting it this evening. Commissioner Persis.
I need to disclose that I spoke with the attorney too, so I wanted to say that. But also, I noticed 45 signatures that were in favor of this, establishment, and so many letters in favor of it. And I know there's some people that are not happy with it, but I really don't think the noise is going to be a huge factor here in this place with what I would just heard. So I would be in favor of it also.
Mayor,
Commissioner Selby.
Yeah. A couple of the big concerns for me or big topics are, number one, North US 1 is the primary gateway into the greater Ormond Beach area and really the entire Daytona Beach area. If you're traveling south on 95, Google takes you off at North US 1 to bring you into the area. I've heard from neighbors in Ormond Lakes, and they're very concerned about this. And as far as noise goes, I live across Tomoka State Park off of Beach Street, and I can hear the lyrics of the songs during Bike Week and Biketoberfest at my house when I'm outside. So I can only imagine how loud it is if you're right next door to these or within a half mile or a mile of these businesses. I like Vice Mayor Kent, I'm concerned about the timing of this. For 11 years, effectively the property has been operated as an itinerant merchant business. Ample notice to get a permanent business established, and now here we are put in the position to. What really sort of bothers me about this is, what was the purpose of doing this 5-year thing other than you would be permanently in? But if we grant a 3-year thing, in 3 years you come back and you get it rubber stamped again. So here's so the bottom line on this for me is, I can support vendors and music for the 3 special events identified, but only for 1 year, because I want to see how it goes, and I want the applicant back in here. I also want to see a real legitimate permanent year-round business. I don't want to see a 672 square foot building that has an occupational license but is never open or hardly ever open, and therefore it must be 2 or 3 acres of land. It's effectively totally cleared. It just becomes a special event area, which that's not what I want to see on our main gateway coming into town. That's not what I think is right for Ormond Beach, and I cannot support the year-round music. If you want year-round music, invest the money, build a business worthy of, like the River Grill, like the Mitris, like the Beach Bucket. Build a business, build a facility that's worthy of the potential to disrupt the neighbors, to be outside. I think the reality of that actually happening, I think it's been proven, is pretty slim with the type of music that would be likely to happen. But the special events really are hard on the neighbors. So with that, I can support 1 year for vendors and for special event music, but I cannot support music year round.
Thank you, Commissioner. Deputy Mayor Kent.
Thank you. I know we have a motion and a second on the floor, but I could support if that were to fail or another commissioner said, you know what, I like the idea of the year, because then it really does. We say, yes, you know what, I mean it. I want you to be successful, be able to open up with your itinerant vendors and get rocking and rolling this Friday, but we'll give you a year and then you're going to come back. It's very similar to what your idea was with Window World, Commissioner Selby. And I think it's appropriate for this unique situation. So if we can get a third person to agree with that and you make that motion, I'll second it. If the first one fails or the maker and the seconder want to remove theirs, then I'm with you on that.
Anything further? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Kent?
No.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
No.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. And now we move to 7E.
Resolution number 2020-38, a resolution authorizing the execution and issuance of a development order for a special exception to allow outdoor activity to include itinerant vending during recognized special events at the KEGJ Holdings LLC, located at 1170 North US Highway 1 and being situated within the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District, establishing conditions and expiration date of approval, and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2020-38, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. Stephen, did you want to speak on this one as well?
This is a special exception again for outdoor activities. This outdoor activity is solely for itinerant vending during the recognized special events. The property is located this is Energizer, Playtex Manufacturing. The Wall Street is right here, and then US 1 is right here. They are a permanent business. They do custom lighting. They are seeking to do vending in this area here. There is a ditch here, and as part of their overall site plan, they would have security fencing around the site. They would have a parking area off of Wall Street. So their application is to allow up to 12 vendors during the recognized special events during Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and Race Weeks. The planning board did review this one. Similar to the last item, they requested Turkey Run and Jeep Beach items. Their vendors are proposed from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, the special exception is proposed for 3 years. The planning board did recommend with a 6-0 vote to approve this item. Removing the Turkey Run and Jeep Beach has a lot of the same issues as the last one, minus the outdoor music and the permanent outdoor music. This is, again, solely for vendors up to 12 at the property.
Thank you, Stephen. Just need a motion and a second for discussion.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right. And I do have one card. It's the applicant, Kenneth Gardner.
Hi, Ken Gardner, 26 Forest View Lane, or Forest View Way. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you,
Much
Ken.
simpler than the last one.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner Sutton.
I drove by your business today.
Looks nice, doesn't it?
I didn't realize that, that you're so far back from the road, the building, that, I had to drive in along on your north side there. I'm curious, how many employees do you have?
Myself and Jamie,
Okay.
too.
All right. And you do bike-related stuff, and
We do
travel?
bike-related stuff, Jeep-related stuff, which was part of where the Jeep Beach part came from.
You do
We travel around the country, do shows. We are vendors ourselves at other national shows.
And did you make application for 12? Is there a limitation on how many vendors you can have? I mean, is it in your application you only wanted 12, or?
You're limited by whatever you ask for, and it was, just to correct Steve, it was 12 plus 2.
Okay.
It was 12 itinerant and then 2 food vendors.
So this may be a question for why was Boot Hill allowed 24? Is it a function of the area, the land area, or?
Their size was much larger. That was their application when they came in. Basically, if we're going back to Boot Hill, they maintained a 100-foot buffer off the rear, so they could have had more if they had gone closer. This site, I think they're basically trying to ensure that they have adequate parking by not stacking vendors in the rear here, so their vendors would be up here. We worked with various members of the Site Plan Review Committee to make sure they're screening so they don't get out into US 1. So basically their uses would be here, and then they would leave the site. They're not looking to cross the street to go to other vending.
Okay, and there's no residential to the rear either.
Correct.
There's a
All,
railroad
that's
train
all
track behind
commercial
us.
around you. Okay. And you only want, you don't
Actually,
want.
it was just by what we asked for. There was
Right.
no
Right.
size. I mean, based on the size vendors that we're looking at, we may not be able to get that many. I mean, we're not trying to be a Boot Hill or an Iron Horse or a Beaver Bar.
Right.
We're just a little family shop, and we want to help some other people out.
Right. And you're not asking for any music.
Of course not. never will. The irony of it is, and I wasn't going to say nothing, but the irony of it is we purchased the property, or I had initiated to purchase the property in 2016. and had we been made aware of, we would have been a permanent grandfathered in, but we were never made aware of this situation.
We ran a legal ad in the newspaper. We ran a legal ad in the newspaper, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. How could you not have known that? I mean,
Deputy Mayor Kent.
Yep, no questions. Just a thank you for having a business that's operational there year-round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a really good spot.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you.
We actually looked at Ormond Beach 8 years ago, but we weren't as welcomed here as we were in Holly Hills, so we went to Holly Hill across from Luigi's for our first 5 years.
I'm glad you made a better decision.
This is a nicer spot.
All right. Commission, any discussion? Colby, please call the vote.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. And we will close the public hearings and move to 8A.
Resolution number 2020-39, a resolution approving the use of geometric patterns on the facade of the Chateau Mar Beach Resort and denying the use of geometric patterns on the parking lot wall and seawall located at 507 South Atlantic Avenue and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2020-39, read by title only.
Thank you, Colby. I don't have any cards on this. Just need a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll move resolution 2020-39.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of curious what, why, well, first of all, it's already up. That's number one. Stuff's already on there, right?
Right, so basically they started the paint without a repaint or a permit application. So basically it was brought to us through code enforcement. And then the code does allow geometric patterns. We have stated before with other buildings such as Casa del Mar, the Lotus, I think the Maverick, that the beachside buildings have a tough time breaking up some of their walls. So we communicated by email with the applicant. Staff doesn't object to the building. I think we have concerns with the walls. That's something that we haven't done previously. And we can't apply the same logic on the walls because all walls are 6 feet. So if you were to do that, you're basically opening up every seawall in the city of Ormond Beach to come to the commission and ask for geometric patterns. So that's the reason. And if that's a policy direction, then we'll be more than happy to take it and either write it into the code or
Well, I went by there today. I walked down to the beach. I sneezed because the sunlight was bright, and there happened to be one of Ormond's finest. One of our police officers was there at the ramp, and he said, "God bless you" to me. So that was very nice. And I walked down and looked at the seawall and the wall along the beach approach there. And I personally wouldn't have a problem with allowing that same pattern on both of those places.
Commissioner Persis.
I think my personal opinion is I don't like it. I think it's very busy. I definitely would not want to see it on the seawall or on the side of the building. I mean, I don't think it's attractive personally. I just want to throw that out there.
Commissioner Littleton.
I'm okay with the geometric patterns. I'll add that I accept staff's conclusions and their reasoning behind it, but I subjectively think the painted seawall and parking wall would look cool, so I'd be in favor of adding that. I'm not going to die on the sword for it, but just throwing it out there.
Deputy Mayor Kent.
Yeah. Can you repeat, Stephen, the projects before that we approved? I know the Maverick, Casa del Mar,
and the Lotus, which
and,
is
and Lotus. And Commission, looking back, the Casa del Mar, next time you drive by and you look at that building, it's like a half a shell, I think is the design, and it's all over the building, and I think it looks great. And the Lotus, I also would agree and think it looks great. And that Maverick, I'm just going to tell you, when I drive by at night and those lines of LED lights, I'm like, goodness gracious, I cannot believe I approved that. I do not like the way it looks. But that's not what we're talking about tonight we're talking about 507 South Atlantic Avenue. And I, for one, have to say, it might be one of the first times ever, but I'm going to disagree with Commissioner Persis. I kind of like the geometric shapes on the front of it, and I think that on the seawall in the back, I agree with Commissioner Selby and Commissioner Littleton that I think it also adds to the building. Something I always like to think about is what's it going to look like if new owners or it starts fading. Although if you went and looked at it today, you saw the condition that it was today because that's not painted yet. Right. So this isn't done, and there it is. So we have that or that. And I'm going to go for that, the second one. So, yeah, I think that's three of us. We might be able to adjust this and give them permission to go ahead and do their seawall as well.
Mr. Mayor, I think the applicant may be in the audience. I'm not sure if he filled out a card.
I didn't see a card. And just so everybody knows where everybody is, I'm a little more with Commissioner Persis in that I'm not as thrilled with the view from the beach, although I can live with it. What I really don't like is the fronting internal site proposed geometric patterns, and maybe it's just because of how they're displayed there. You're not showing them actually painted.
I think it's just a Photoshop.
Yeah, and then again, that's their decision because their customers are the ones that are going to have to look at that. That seems far busier than what the view from the beach looks like. I can live with the view from the beach, and if they want to do that, that's fine. That's their private property right decision to do that. So that's where I'm at. And if somebody wants to make a motion along those lines.
What do we do with the motion that we already have?
We would amend it.
You amend yours.
Okay, so I'll amend, I was the maker, I believe, right?
Yes, you were.
Okay, so I will amend my motion to include the seawall and the interior wall.
Who was the seconder, Colby?
Commissioner Persis.
All right. She may not want to.
It doesn't matter.
If someone else wants to.
That big of a deal.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
So you'll amend your second,
I can amend my second.
or you could withdraw your second and let
Withdraw
somebody
my
else.
second.
Okay.
Let somebody else second
Yes.
that. Is there another second?
I'll second Mr. Selby's amended motion.
All right. Are you okay with that, Randy? Yes, sir. Okay. With that, unless there's any other discussion, I'll ask Colby to call the vote.
Commissioner Littleton.
Yes.
Commissioner Selby.
Yes.
Commissioner Kent.
Yes.
Commissioner Persis.
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And we move to 9 staff action items. And this is the 9A. Who wants to talk to this? Stephen, are you back on 9A, signage?
With the approval of the capital improvement program, there was a project to add signage at the Ormond Beach Elementary. This is the parking lot. It is a school parking lot which the city participates, including maintenance. Part of the issue was a lack of signage. We have talked to both the school board staff and the principal. Their primary concern is not allowing individuals in the daytime at the campus. They don't want people who are not part of school on there. The school board staff is willing to work with the local businesses to allow them to park there once they are screened. So there is an opportunity, and I believe Ormond Main Street, some of the businesses and the principal have met to discuss that. So there's an opportunity to better use the parking lot under controlled circumstances. So the capital project sought to provide signage, and walking through the signage, the first sign was at the corner of Ridgewood Avenue and West Granada Boulevard. It would basically be where the wall is, so it would have to be elevated. It's not a traditional monument sign at grade. The goal was to identify the parking. We did bring this item to Ormond Main Street, who expressed concern that if there are limited parking hours, maybe that sign is not appropriate. So there was some concern that sign 1 may not be needed. Sign 2 was basically at the end of Lewis. There's an existing sign here that says City Hall one way, and I think the library. So the goal would be to provide some additional directional signage consistent with the city's downtown wayfinding sign, And the third sign would be parking during non-school hours. There's been a lot of discussions of what that text should say. It's hard to say at time because the summer, the holidays. So there would be another internal sign telling you kind of some of the regulations that school parking lots live with. So staff is seeking direction from the commission if you desire to move forward with those three signs, if you desire to move forward with two of them or none of them. The capital project did envision at one time potential for electronic signage. After meeting with school board staff, discussing it internally, we are not recommending electronic signage. We will take some of the savings from that and apply it to the Florence Street streetscape and parking project. So that'll help us in that area. That's all I got.
Thank you, Stephen. My vote is for none of them. I would put where the sign is when you're headed southbound on Lewis and you see the little blue sign hanging on the fence that says City Hall Library with an arrow. I would put another sign like that our streets department can make very inexpensively that would say Ormond Beach Elementary parking during non-school hours with an arrow that direction.
Absolutely that.
And then continue to let Main Street work with our vendors, our businesses on permit parking in there. They've got parking during the day that's open and available. They just want to know who's in there.
Absolutely.
And I was behind the chamber today at about 11:45 and saw employees parking there to walk to Holes and other restaurants. So people are parking wherever they can and then walking to their employment. But that's my position. Let's hear from the rest of the commission. I'd rather save the $22,000. Commissioner Persis.
Yeah, I think it's a little expensive for those signs, it sounds to me. And right now, I think people seem to know they can park there. I mean, I know at night when I go out to eat at 31 or Rose Villa, I see people parking there. So right now, I don't really know that we need to do anything either.
Commissioner Selby.
Yeah, I think I made this comment a couple of years ago. To me, the single biggest challenge with this parking lot is that there is no way to walk directly from the parking area to the corner of Little Ridgewood and Granada. You have to come in, up at the driveway in front of the school or the road up at Corbin, basically, or there might be a way to cut through the bushes up there. But it's not obvious that you can park there. And I think until we make it obvious that, albeit after school hours, that you can park there and that it's easy, that people can walk. There's right at the corner, there's a retention pond or something, I think, that's got side walls on it. Yeah, right there. And that blocks the direct access. If there was a sidewalk that brought you straight down to Granada, that would dramatically improve the utilization of this parking lot after school hours. And I would take that money and put it towards designing that or building that instead of these signs. I know they're expensive, but they're really expensive.
Commissioner Littleton.
It's so funny. Sometimes I thought I was going to have to come up here and argue against sign one against everybody, but well, it is surprising. I'm in favor of signs 2 and 3. I thought they looked nice. Sign 1, I don't feel like being charitable to Ormond Beach Elementary with the CRA money, I have to say. I think we can do a lot more with the money. We could buy 6 new pole signs for that $22,000 and place them all over the downtown to identify parking on Corbin Street or Corbin Avenue if we felt. So I'm okay with signs 2 and 3, not sign 1.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm okay with what Commissioner Selby mentioned. Now, the school's going to, of course, weigh in on. Now you've got an access point to walk up, but I guess you could walk up down Little Ridgewood and over as well. So, but I think you're right. It would be a dramatic improvement if you had 1 or even 2 sidewalks coming from that parking lot, and then we could save the money on the signs.
Good deal.
Mr. Mayor, to wrap up, so I hear like no signs and look at alternatives for
Getting
ramps?
to Granada
Okay.
from the parking lot.
Got
Yep, pedestrian access. Thank you. We move to 10A, discussion items, the North Mainland Ormond Crossings Community Redevelopment Area Extension. I don't have any cards. City Manager?
I'll just briefly review this item, and if you have any additional questions, we'll have Brian up. The Ormond Crossing CRA is set to expire in June of this year. We renewed that once 5 years ago with the county. The county set new rules for CRAs after we had already renewed this, and they used this CRA as an example because it was of a limited duration, it was a single purpose, and there was a cap on the amount of dollars to contribute. With Security First coming in, there's an opportunity, we think, to maybe get this roadway built, and this roadway only is a portion of the roadway that would go into the industrial park. The city's portion is $8 million of CRA funds, and the county's portion would be $4 million. We're getting about $185,000, $200,000 a year now with Security First there. Staff did have a discussion with county staff and county council members to see what their appetite was to renew this. We believe that this is an important part of the ongoing Ormond Crossings development, and we're requesting your permission to make a formal request to Volusia County to renew this CRA.
Thank you. I don't have any cards. Commissioner Selby?
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, the flyover over the railroad is absolutely critical for the long-term success of Ormond Crossings. And my fear is that I don't know that we're going to be able to get enough that the Ford family will be able to get, and that Mr. Lesby and Livingston will be able to get enough businesses in the park driving over the railroad tracks at Broadway to ever generate enough CRA money, tax increment money, to build the flyover to really have this thing go. So I hope that staff is looking at some alternative ways, maybe, or the developer is, to fund the creation of that, because that really, on the business park side, is very, very vital. And I'll make one other comment, which is that we did at Team Volusia. I'm co-chair of the real estate committee, and we did a site readiness study. And when you look at all of the available sites on the east side of the county, there's no question that Ormond Crossings will be one of the major development opportunities for high-end, commercial, industrial growth in the not-too-distant future, because the LPGA land is basically done. It's almost completely full. So with interstate exposure and a direct interstate interchange, we have a tremendous opportunity, and that should be a big selling point to the county also to do this. So, yeah, I'm all in on it.
Great. Deputy Mayor Kent?
I'm a yes on it.
I'm a yes on it as well.
Commissioner Little?
Yes.
All right, and I'm a yes. Do you have everything you need? Unanimous yeses? Great. All right, we'll move to reports, suggestions, and requests, and we start with City Manager Joyce Shanahan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to report that at today's County Council meeting, they approved the McDonald House Echo Grant, the Nova Tennis Center complex lighting, and I'm fairly certain they also approved the Art Museum Echo Grant. So 3 for 3 for Ormond Beach, so we're very happy about that. Next meeting is March 17th, Tuesday. At 5:30, we'll have the Financial Trends Workshop. I don't see Kelly here. I think we routinely invite the Budget Advisory Board to that meeting, so they will also be present. I just wanted to reiterate, Mrs. Chidora was here tonight to talk about her issues. We are still fact-finding on that process, and they're doing site visits, and I believe that area is next for the engineer to take a look at. So I appreciate their frustration, but we are moving forward on that project. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Commissioner Persis.
Yeah. Joyce, where are we with the emergency center?
I don't, is that back yet, Sean? Okay, so we've got a final draft of that, and we can workshop that sometime April.
Right, I was just with hurricane season isn't too far away, so we have a plan.
Anything else?
Anything else? All right. Assistant City Manager, thank you, Joyce. Claire Whitley.
Thank you. No comments. Have a great night.
Thank you, Claire. And City Attorney Randy Hayes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I provided you a copy of a new statute that was effective last July 1st on tree pruning and preemption of local government regulation. And I just wanted to go over that with you briefly this evening and answer any questions you may have. But, it's kind of interesting. Since 1974, all of the local government cities and counties have enjoyed broad home rule powers of self-government. And unfortunately, these past several years, we've seen the legislature slowly chip away at that. And lo and behold, this is another piece of legislation that does the same thing. Essentially, what this law does is preempts local government regulation, prohibiting any notice or application or permit or approval of a resident from removing a tree on private property. There is some indication that the legislature may broaden the scope of that application to commercial properties. Don't know where that's going to go, but that's just a scuttlebutt by some of my colleagues. I know there's been some discussion by certain members of the community, some expressing interest in establishing a tree board. Sounds good. I'm not sure how meaningful it'll be, considering the preemption is somewhat limited in some respects, but not in others. So, my read of the statute is that it's not well written. It's somewhat confusing, but the intention of the preemption is pretty clear, unfortunate as it may be. In terms of existing boards that can deal with quality of life and issues related to trees, I think the Quality of Life Board is already suited as part of the broad scope of duties that it has. So I think you have the ability for some general oversight, but our ability to actually regulate these matters on private properties has been significantly preempted by the state yet again. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions for Randy? Thank you, Randy, for that. And tonight we start with Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank Mr. Hayes. I asked him to talk about that email we received for the tree board and state preemption and how any new board would sort of be hamstrung. Home rule is constantly under attack, but we sort of got lucky. Airbnb thing kind of died in the Senate, I heard. So until next year, I guess. Furthermore, I want to thank the Commission for giving me leeway on item 6A. I was convinced by your arguments, and my mind actually changed during that process. Then the shrimp eating contest at River Grill, a fundraiser for fire cadets and the police explorers. A little special place in my heart because I was a police explorer, though it was in Baltimore, Maryland, back in the day, and it was a great event. I think I ate just under half a pound of shrimp. Me and the mayor combined ate 1 pound, 0.5 ounces. So that I'm not saying that's how much you ate, the remainder of that, but I think I only ate half a pound.
We got the bronze.
You're right. You got the bronze. But it was a great event. I actually went to the bank yesterday, and someone in the bank said that they saw River Grill's Facebook live feed and saw me eating and stuffing my face in such a great manner. But over $1,000, I think $1,100 was raised for those organizations combined, and it was great, and I think it's the first of many to come every year. And with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you, Commissioner Littleton. Commissioner Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just take a little privilege here tonight, personal privilege tonight. One, I was not able to attend the Taste of Ormond on Sunday, and I think that's the first time I missed it in years, because my son's twin daughters were celebrating their second birthday. So Madison and Merrill turned 2, and they are, well, obviously cute as a button and incredibly smart, right? You know, so that was that's my and I really actually did sort of think about getting into the shrimp eating contest, but then I because I love shrimp, but I don't know, eating as much as I can didn't sound, it just didn't sound good. The other thing I just wanted to say was I wanted to thank you all for carrying on business while I was in Israel. We had a fabulous trip. It was some call it a pilgrimage. It was really a church-sponsored visit, tour, and I posted a lot of pictures on Facebook. And if anybody wants to see the full slideshow, we're going to open up our living room, and you can come over and we'll make a big night of it. No, seriously, if anybody's curious about that, I'm more than happy to share with you some of the sights we saw and the things we experienced. So, thank you. With that, I'll say good night.
Thank you, Commissioner. Deputy Mayor Kent.
All right. Commissioner Selby, there's no doubt in my mind you made the right decision. Instead of going to Taste of Ormond, being there for your granddaughter's 2-year-old birthday, second birthday. Commissioner Boehm taught me that a long time ago, that you don't miss family events. And listening to you sit there and talk, it made me think about my 16 years here, and I think I've missed 3 meetings. And one was when my son Wyatt was born. He was born on a Tuesday commission day actually, but he was born on that Tuesday. The second one was I was ill. And the third one was my kid was in the championship game and hit a home run. And Commissioner Boehm just reminded me. He said, you'd never forgive yourself for missing that. And it wasn't a commission meeting you missed, but, man, it was a great time. And the Taste of Ormond is where I'm going to go next. And it was a great time, had by all. The entertainment was phenomenal. The food was delicious. The company was spectacular. And you could not have asked for better weather. And my last thing is we had coffee with Commissioner Kent last evening at my house. We had a packed family room. It was a great meeting. We truly have the best residents because they care. And the next meeting with Coffee with Commissioner Kent is Monday, April 6th, 5 to 6 p.m. at my residence, 130 Magnolia Drive. And for those of you that have been, we go around and introduce ourselves, and then I simply just say we're here to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. You have an hour, not 61 minutes, but exactly 60 minutes, 1 hour, and we have a nice time. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kent. And Commissioner Persis.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I was at the Taste of Ormond also, and it was fabulous. Every single restaurant that was there, all the food was delicious. I ate way, way, way too much, and I'm so glad I didn't join in the shrimp contest because I would not have been able to even come close to these two guys. But it was a perfect day for the Taste of Ormond, and it was just I can't wait till the next one. It was awesome. Today I had my first coffee with Commissioner Persis at Peach Valley, and I had several residents there. And Bill, thank you for coming, and it was just a great day. And it was really kind of fun because we're there talking, and I really heard some great ideas for the city, and I can't wait to talk with Joyce Shanahan about it next time we meet. But it was funny because the mayor and my husband were going around doing Teacher of the Quarter, And so I guess they decided they would surprise us and pop in at our coffee at Peach Valley, and they surprised us and sat down and joined us for a few minutes. So that was kind of a nice little treat for everyone who was there. So it was really a lot of fun. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm sorry I didn't start earlier. So my next coffee with Commissioner Persis is May 5th at Peach Valley at 9 a.m. So please take note of that. I am excited to let everyone know that I'm going along with the mayor to Washington, D.C. for the National League of Cities Conference. We leave on Saturday, and we're going to be there 3 or 4 nights. And I know we're going to meet with some of our congressmen, and we're going to tour the White House. I was selected to be on the Energy and Environmental Natural Resources Committee for the United States. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about some of my favorite environmental issues and bringing them back to the city. So I definitely will be reporting back about that. And my last little comment is kind of a personal note, too. I went to Doug Wigley Ball Field last night to watch my 4-year-old grandson play T-ball. And I hadn't been out there since I was out there with Commissioner Boehm a while ago. And it's so beautiful out there, and to see all the kids participating in T-ball and soccer and at different age levels, it's really quite an area we have out there. So I just want to say thank you to our city for all of that. It was just really very, very nice. So with that, and I just want to thank the commission and everyone for allowing this trip to Washington, for letting me learn a little more each day. I like learning. So thank you, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you, Commissioner Persis. I wanted to thank Randy again for the update on the trees. State preemption is a difficult thing. When the legislature preempts what you do as a city, it can be frustrating. And we have very strong tree ordinances. Commissioner Selby said last meeting, the meeting before, however many pages of tree ordinances that we have, and yet our Florida legislature comes up with a process where you get a letter, you cut down the tree, and from what I read, the city can't even ask to see the letter. So we have no idea if they even got the letter. But people can now cut down trees at will. And so to me, more important than creating a duplicative tree committee in our city would be for those interested residents to go to Tallahassee and convince the legislature, let our tree ordinance work. The people who are closest to their city know how things work best, and that's called home rule, local control. Our city has been a Tree City USA for 29 years. In the last 2 years, we've received the Growth Award, which is a higher level of Tree City USA. We have a great tree board, which is our quality of life board. That meets all the standards that the Arbor Day Foundation requires. And the information that the folks who wanted a tree committee submitted, it states right in there that that's perfectly fine as your tree board. And so I wanted to point that out. We have a strong community tree ordinance. Our city spends over $250,000 a year on trees, $273,000, $273,600 to be exact. The Arbor Day Foundation, to be a Tree City USA, requires $2 per capita. We spend almost $7. So we far exceed those standards. And I'm proud of that. I think this commission continues to be proud of that. When you come over the Granada Bridge headed west, you see trees for miles. And I flew home from a trip maybe a month and a half ago, and it's just trees everywhere. We have such a beautiful city as you look over, and so we try to protect that. I'm worried with what the legislature has done that can be now at risk, but that's not coming from us. We've indicated our dedication to trees, our strong support of trees, and other people have taken away our ability to make sure that continues to be the standard. So Again, thank you for that, Randy. I wanted to thank Dr. Shapiro, who's the chairman of our Quality of Life Advisory Board. He wrote a letter a couple weeks ago and just explained that they are well equipped and well able to handle any of the topics related to our local trees. Of course, whatever they do at this point is subject to preemption from the state, and so that continues to be a problem. Enough on trees. I wanted to just point out on 7D that we had received, at least I did, a letter today from Kathleen and William Lazarus, residents of Ormond Beach, and I forwarded that to Colby earlier and asked her to make it part of the record for that item. They were opposed to the recommendation, and they stated their reasons why. The shrimp eating contest, we got, it was a great time. The shrimp were delicious. The River Grill does an amazing job. But Commissioner Littleton and I got clobbered by police and fire. Fire did fantastic. I mean, they ate 2 pounds and some ounces, but they didn't stop when the buzzer rang after 5 minutes. They kept on eating. I think they ate the full, was it 3 pounds? 3 pounds. And so they got the gold. PD, D.W. Smith, and Officer Devane somehow managed to get silver. I'm still upset about that, but they pulled it off, and congratulations to them. But it was just a great spirit out there, and that restaurant was jam-packed. They are doing a fantastic job, and that's great to see. So there was a time when you heard certain people speak, you would think that it was going to be the worst thing that could ever happen, and in fact, it's just the opposite. It's a fantastic addition to the city. Taste of Ormond is always a great event. The weather was perfect. The commission covered it very well. My favorite this year was the sushi place. I was very impressed with that, and I just think one of the great events that this city does every year is put on by Main Street, and it's called Taste of Ormond. So we did have an opportunity this morning during our Teacher of the Quarter running around, which is another great thing we do, honoring our classroom teachers in Ormond Beach, to stop by Persis at Peach Valley, or how do you say it exactly? Yeah. Peach Valley with Commissioner Persis. Yeah, we were hoping to get some apple fritters, but apparently all the apple fritters were gone, and so we just stopped by for about 2 or 3 minutes, took a picture, and we had to be on our way. But it was great to see you this morning in action, and it looked like everybody there was pleased and having a great time. So with that, at 9:27, we will be adjourned. Thank you.